Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage. It is time to get back, actually to start, I should say, the $5,000 1956 Chevy truck build, the shop truck, the low buck shop truck. I took a week off because I finished scrapping out the red XJ6. That was the front suspension donor for this. And then I had another XJS here, cut that up and got rid of that as well. So we can go over all the numbers. That car is now gone and crushed, so we can go all the numbers and see what we did with it as far as helping the budget or hurting the budget. So first thing on the build is going to be the chassis, but in order to do the chassis I need the cab. So first thing I have to do is get the big truck in the garage, get the cab off of this chassis, get this chassis out of here, and then have this chassis available, have this cab available to use on the half-ton chassis so we can start building it. And I'll explain why, but first we get this cab off this thing and go from there. Okay, we got the 3800 inside the garage. I need to get the cab off this thing to use it. The reason I want the cab before I start the chassis build is because I don't trust measurements. I've looked into these Tri-5 Chevy trucks. Everybody has their own idea of where the front wheel should be in the front wheel opening, and I think a lot of it depends on tire diameter, ride height, and the only way to figure that out is to have a cab on the frame, set a fender on there, and look and see what the front end looks like on the chassis. So I'm going to mark the original frame where the center line is of the front axle, but that's not where I'm going to end up with my center line. I think, based on what I've seen, it'll be about an inch forward, but just as verification, we'll put it in place, hang a fender, and get a look at it. But getting ahead of the deal there. That's just why I need the cab. So I need this cab. The other funny thing is, this cab is not even bolted onto this chassis. I towed this home 2 hours on the highway, and somebody already took the bolts out of the cab. I think they were trying to take it off but didn't know how, because they started taking apart the steering box, which they didn't need to do or shouldn't have done. And yeah, at least it was in place so it didn't fly away. But because of that, I had to buy a new body mount kit and bolts, so we add that to the budget. But before I start on this, let's talk about the budget. The Jaguar XJ6 donor for the front suspension is gone. Let's go over the numbers. All right, here are the final numbers for the Jaguar donor, front suspension donor. So last we left, I was at $180 out of my pocket for the front suspension. Here's how it went. It went better than expected. I shipped out a box of some miscellaneous electrical stuff that was 20 bucks. Got me to 160 out of pocket. Somebody wanted the transmission, the grill, fog lights, some miscellaneous parts. $200 into profit. So that put $40 in my pocket. I scrapped the body and the catalytic converters, and that was $310, believe it or not. Scrap was up. $350 in our pockets toward the build. Then, toward the end, I told a guy, 200 bucks, take whatever you want off the car before it gets crushed. He took a dash pad and a bunch of electrical stuff and a computer and a whole bunch of miscellaneous things. $200. $550 profit on this car. Then sold the independent rear suspension for $250 for a final $800 profit on this car. So that is $800 into the build that we didn't have. And I got for free the independent front suspension. I kept both gas caps. I kept the ratchet shifter. And I kept a bunch of miscellaneous electrical connectors that come in handy. So as far as the truck, where we are on the truck, after making $800 profit on it, so that takes away the $180 plus another $980 subtracted off the build. So value is still at $1,950. Money out of pocket right now, $900. Is that insane? Then I figured, I forgot I had to at least give a value to the bed, even though the rest of the truck from this 58 canceled out. I'll call it worth $350. So that moves the value of the truck to $2,300. But right now, money out of pocket is only $900. So that helps a whole lot toward the 5,000 goal and makes it possible. So that's where we are right now. Only $900 net out of pocket so far in this build. Still a long ways to go. Still a whole lot of stuff to buy. So we're not out of the woods by any means, but doing well so far. So I need to get the cab off this truck. Like I said, this was somebody's hot rod project at some point that they took it apart and gave up. I mean, they had labeled cables and speedometer cable and things on here as if they meant to put it back together. But it looks like they just gave up. They started taking things apart and they just stopped. Like I said, this chassis has basically a brand new disc brake kit on it. It's got a power booster underneath, still under the floor, all that stuff. But all that's going to stay with the chassis. So I need to get the steering box out of here, the steering column out of here, because that's one piece. Disconnect the clutch pedal, brake pedal, and that should be it. I'll take the hood off. I guess I can. I don't even have to, but I'll take the hood off to get it out of the way. And that will get this clear, and then fly the cab off this thing and get to work on the chassis. All right, I'm just going to time lapse some of this. I'm just going to cut the wires right off the firewall because I don't know how this truck was wired, but I see, you know, an old school voltage regulator on the firewall. I know that kind of stuff's not going to be getting used. Old style horn relay there. I'm going to be rewiring the whole truck. So I don't need any of that stuff. It's not worth saving. I'm just going to hack it, and then I'll come back and actually show you some of the things that you have to take apart that are not just cutting. All right, just like that, the firewall is stripped. I promise I will use minimal time lapse. So if you don't like what I'm doing, just fast forward through it. But I will be videoing as much as I can because I hate time lapse, especially on something where you're actually trying to maybe teach something or somebody's trying to learn. So I am going to video as much as I can within reason. And if they're long videos and you don't want to watch it, that's cool, fast forward. But I hope I can teach something to somebody. So firewall is clean. Next thing I'll do is disconnect the pedals. Let me show you how those come off. Okay, next will be clutch and brake pedal, which go through the floor. Easy enough. Looks like we got one bolt here. Take that out, and then I should be able to pull the pedal through the floor. Over on the brake, get that nut off of there. I soaked it down with some PB Blaster. Get that nut off, and I should be able to push brake pedal up through the floor and get that separated. All right, so get this clutch pedal disconnected first with that cross bolt right there. Should be easy enough, we hope. 9/16. I don't know how long any of this stuff's been together. Probably a long time. All right, that's that. And I have to save all this stuff because I'm going to use it when I use this chassis for the Mater build. But that's not now. So I'm going to put the bolt back in here so I don't lose it. In fact, I think I'll just tie the brake pedal on there as well. Make that the clutch pedal, not the brake pedal. But I'll just hook it back on. Put it together. And then it'll be here when I need it. All right, now will be the brake pedal. 3/4 inch nut here. She's tight and I can't get any leverage. So we'll put the cheater bar on it. There we go. All right, that's off of there. And I'll probably have to give that a shot. Now it looks like that's maybe in there. Here I'm going to put the nut back on and tighten it up so it's just flush with the rod, brake pedal there. I'm going to give that a smack and see if it comes loose without any heat. Doesn't look good. Looks like I'm going to need a tie rod puller to get that off there. All right, now to get this brake pedal off of the arm there, they're stuck together like a tie rod. So I put a tie rod press on it, and we're going to see if it works. I was going to try a pitman arm press puller, but there's not enough room, and the pitman arm press is actually bigger, too big to use. So I'm going to try this. It looks like it should work. Is it working? I can't tell. Yep. That worked. It worked good. Now, get the nut back off. And that worked good. And that's all this tool here is. It's a tie rod removal tool. Works good when you want to take a tie rod off and save the boot. It doesn't destroy everything like a pickle fork does. All right. All right. Pull that brake pedal out, and that'll be that. There's the brake pedal. You see it has that serrated area there. That's pressed into that lever. That's why it didn't just come apart so easy. All right, what's next? Okay, next big thing is going to be the biggest thing of it all, the steering column and the steering box. It's one piece, so I have to pull the steering wheel off, take the pitman arm off, and get the steering box and the column, the whole thing out toward the front. At least that's how I think it's going to come out. If I was normally in my builds, I would just cut this off right here, because I'd end up putting a U-joint on the steering box or a U-joint on the steering column, or depending on what I was building. But when this chassis gets used, as far as I know right now, I'm going to keep all that stock stuff, so I want to take it out in one piece. So I'm going to pop the pitman arm first, get that off of the box, and then go in and deal with the steering wheel. Now this big nut here, I don't know what size it is. I put a big adjustable on it with a bar, and I got it loose. I wanted to make sure it would turn before I spent a half hour trying to video it. So a big nut, lock washer, then we'll put the puller on it. All right, here's the tool you need, pitman arm puller. I'm gonna slide that over this. And I'll show you where we're at here. All right, pitman arm puller is on. Works the same on a modern vehicle from underneath. Gonna put some tension on it, see if it starts moving. And if it doesn't, just put some tension on it. Give it a couple taps. More tension on it. Should start coming loose. Oh yeah, it's off. All right. Yep, she's off. And that's all there is to it. Don't break the tool, just put tension on it. Give the pitman arm a few shots, and off it goes. All right, before I unbolt the steering box from the frame, I'm gonna get the steering wheel off. Somebody, like I said, was already taking things apart here. They already took off the mount where it goes to the dash. So that's here. I still have to clean this cab out and figure out if there's good stuff in here or just junk. But anyway, this horn button just lifts off, or should just lift off as far as I know. There it goes. It just snaps in. And then we'll get a ratchet on that. I think that might be 3/4. Let's see. Yep, 3/4 it is. Alright. That and the horn plate and horn contact. Make sure I don't lose those. Now, to get this steering wheel off, you get a puller on it. Sometimes I can just tap on the shaft, but I don't want to break the bearing either. So let me get a puller. All right, puller on. Oof, that's not good. Not pulling straight. Actually bent my bolt. All right, I got it. I had to stack a bunch of washers under the bolts after straightening them back out to cut the leverage down on them. And it looks like that did the job. Yeah, she's off. Maybe that's why the other guy didn't pull the steering wheel off. That thing was a bear. All right, steering wheel off. We got 3 bolts holding the steering box to the frame. They are bolts and nuts, so you got to use a wrench on the inside. To get the nut. And then that should get the steering box off. And then I'm gonna go take a drive. To possibly find the truck that will be the donor to supply an engine and transmission. The reason I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not is because for some reason the guy selling the truck can't tell me whether it's 4-wheel drive or not, and can't get me pictures of what I need to see to determine it. But the reason I'm going to go look at it anyway is because he's asking $650, which is not a lot of money for a running truck. 2001 Silverado. Now, from what I can see of the stance of the truck, I think it's two-wheel drive, which is what I want. Because if it's 4x4, I don't know if I want it even if at 650, because I have enough engines around. But it'd be nice to have a two-wheel drive transmission. And if that works out, that can be the donor for this truck. In the meantime, we're getting this out of here, which is hanging up on the rubber grommet on the floor here. So we have to cut that. We'll get it out. All right. Horn wire is in the way. So I got the rubber seal off. I had to take this little bracket off of the column, get the horn wire out of the way, the contact wire. And that is it for the steering column. All right, I think this cab is pretty much ready to fly. But first, got to go see if we have a donor. All right, we are on the way to see if we can pick up a donor, an LS donor, for the 56 Chevy build, 56 Chevy Truck build. The only question will be, is this truck a 4x4 or two-wheel drive? Because for the first time ever, the owner doesn't know. And I haven't been able to get him to get me pictures or verify if it is a four-wheel drive or not. It's the first time ever. But, it's only a half hour away. Even if it's 4x4, I may buy it, but I don't need it because I have too many engines already. I was really hoping to find an engine and a transmission we could slide right into this. But if it's a 4x, I'll use a different engine and transmission. So I will come back after we figure out what the deal is with this truck. If I bought it, if I didn't buy it. I'm not going to video the guy because he doesn't know I'm videoing. So you'll see in a little while. I think I just bought the worst Silverado I've ever seen that was being driven on the road. I gotta show you this. You gotta see this. This is under the truck. That's the rear brake hose. Over there's a rear brake line. I think this thing has one wheel brake. Frame? There is no frame. Frame is gone. That was a cross member. Shock cross member. Gone. Broken. This thing, he was driving it. Look at the shackles. Oh my God. And what's even worse is I drove it. I was like, hey, is it on the road? Yeah. All right. I just want to take it down the road and test it for the transmission. Holy smokes. Well, the engine and transmission are good. That's about all I can say about it, other than I don't know how in the world he was driving this thing. He said he got pulled over like every day with it because the inspection's no good on it, and they just let him go. This thing is just done. It is totally done. But it's the perfect donor for the 56 pickup build, because wait till I show you under the hood. I'll show you that on the next video. It is so clean. It's awesome. So yeah, and even better, $500. So I'm gonna get this strapped down by the axle, and hopefully it stays on the trailer and the whole frame doesn't break in half. And I'll call this will be the end of this video, because I'm not gonna have time to pull the cab now today, and this is too hysterical anyway. So I'll end the video here, and we come back, we'll get the cab off the 56, do a little more investigation on this thing, and come back then. Thank you so much for following along. Thank you for subscribing, and this is gonna be crazy. I'll see you on the next video. Later.